Hey guys, it's Tammy from Mitzi Kit, and today we're going to go over our second video on how to quilt and sew for those with low vision or blindness. We're providing tips and techniques to help you to be more successful on your quilting journey. So I have a few topics that I want to go over today. One is tips for online shopping for your fabric. So there are a lot of places to go. I have a few that I'm going to mention today. I also have listed some of these quilting shops and online stores in the notes in your first video. I'll go over those again. And then we're going to go over just some different search techniques and some different ways to maybe cull down your selection so it's easier for you to find what you want online. Then we're going to go over some tips and tools for ironing fabrics to get ready for your piecing. So we'll go over that. And then we're also going to go over the fold and stitch technique. And then we're going to go over a pattern, and I'll be explaining it in low vision, blind friendly terms to create a Christmas tree quilt block. And I know it's a little early for Christmas. It's not yet Thanksgiving, but it takes some time to stitch it, so why not? All right, so we're going to get started now with our online fabric shopping. And I have my computer here so I can actually go over it with you as we search. So as I mentioned in the prior video, I provided some listings of different fabric shops and big box stores that you might want to take a look at for your fabric. And we talked about pre-cuts and how helpful pre-cuts can be so that you don't have to worry about cutting out your 5-inch squares or your 2.5-inch squares or your strips. They come pre-cut for you and often come bundled in designer patterns and colors that are complementary. So where do you go to find these? I've listed a few. One is Hancock's, and the website again listed in the notes under the first video, but I'll review it here. www.hancocks, Paducah, PADUCAH.com. Great website. I'm going to type it in right now. And it comes up because I've been there before. All right, and when it comes up, it has a lot of different pull down options so that you can search for products. It also has your typical eyeglass where you can type in and search for products. And you know, I've not asked folks how accessible this particular site is. So I'd be curious if people have experience with the Hancock's website and using their screen readers, how accessible it has been for you. So please provide your feedback and comments so that other listeners can benefit. There is a tab or a pull down for fabric, so you can go to that, and then it has many different options from batik fabrics, solid fabrics, floral fabrics, novelty fabrics, fashion fabrics, and quilt backing fabrics. So that's one way, you know, if you want to narrow down your search between these. So one of the things I want to do, if I'm looking for pre-cuts, one thing you could do is just type it in under search for products, type in pre-cuts, but they actually have a pull down menu for pre-cuts. So I'm going to go there. And within that pull down, they have several or many different options. And I did also provide some of this information again under the notes in the first video regarding the definition of some of these terms. So for instance, charm packs. Charm packs or charm squares are the typical name for 5-inch squares packed in bundles, usually of 40 to 42. And they are typically, as I mentioned, bundled by designer, by certain patterns and colors that are complementary to each other. So those are great. So they have a section for charm packs. They also have a section for layer cake. They're typical of the 10-inch square pre-cuts and usually sold in bundles of 40 to 42. Those are great, especially if you want a project to go a little quicker. So if you're making a quilt or a runner or something like that and you're using 10-inch squares, it's going to take a little less time than your 5-inch squares. And what else do they have? They have jelly rolls. So jelly rolls is another thing, and this is a typical name for strips of fabric, bundles of strips, and usually 2.5-inch wide, but there are also, there are ranges. Here they mention that they sell them from 1.5 to 6 inches wide and all 44 inches in length. So great resource to be able to go in here and just go right to these different types of pre-cuts. They also have half-yard bundles, so if you wanted something a little bit bigger and you just wanted to cut your own squares using the half-yard bundles, that's an option. And they have fat quarters, and this is typically the 18 by 21 inch or 22 inches pieces of fabric. And again, you would probably take that fabric and cut it into other shapes, perhaps with your die cutting machine. And it's a great way to get a bundle of fabrics in assorted colors that are coordinated. So, nice website on Hancock's. As I mentioned, they have that whole pre-cut section. The other pull downs they have is shop by brand. So this is another thing to consider. One thing when we're talking about quilt fabrics, most quilters will tell you that to be safe, you should quilt with 100% cotton fabric. Now, not all quilters, there are a lot of quilters that will experiment with different types of fabrics. The one benefit I have seen working with the 100% cotton, and not just that it's 100% cotton, but that it's a good quality cotton. So at least, you want your thread count to be at least 60, if not more. And the reason for that is because when you're sewing with that high quality cotton fabric, things like creasing your fabric is going to be much easier and crisper. When you're stitching your fabric, it's not going to have that stretch that sometimes a thinner fabric will have. And then the overall feel of the fabric will just feel much more substantial. And especially with some of the fold and stitch techniques that I'm going to show you, I would say it's especially important mainly because of that, the texture of the fabric. I mean, we want it to be tactile enough so that as you're working with it, it is clear when you feel the edges and you're stitching by the edges. So another reason to use some good quality cotton fabric. So one thing you can do when you're doing searches is actually to put in if you're typing in a search term or speaking in the search term, you could say, 100% cotton quilt fabric, or just quilt cotton fabric, or cotton quilt fabric, some sort of combination of that. Because most quilt fabric will come up as being cotton. Now you could just do cotton fabric and it will also bring you up other choices, but keep in mind that some of that cotton fabric, if it's really low price as compared to the others, then just be a little leery, because sometimes that's because the thread count is very low and the fabric is very thin. So you want to be careful of that. One way that I check, because they don't usually tell you the thread count, if it's specifically made for quilting, then often it will be a better quality cotton. Also, I will look at reviews and see if anyone has mentioned anything about the fabric being very thin. So those are ways you can kind of check on that. Another way to check is just by going with a reputable brand. Now, sometimes that might mean you'll pay a little more for the fabric, but sometimes you get what you pay for. There are many good brands out there. I'm sure many of them you've probably heard of, like Kaufman, Moda, Marcus. I'm looking here on the Hancock's, the Wyndham Fabrics, Timeless Treasures. There's a lot of different good quilt quality cotton fabrics out there. So that's another way you can search, and they do have a shop by brand, which is what we were just referring to. There's also a shop by color, so you can narrow down the colors that you want to use. Now this is really important when you're trying to pull something together in a cohesive pattern for your quilt. You want to have complementary colors. And so you might start, if you're new to quilting, you might start with some simple, just complementary colors, like, you know, black and white obviously goes together. It is nice to have a light and a dark. If you're going to use several colors, then you can kind of get different levels of shading from light, medium to dark. But the dark generally helps to pop off the quilt. So if you can see the quilt behind me, this has some light blue and some darker blue and a little bit of white and a little bit of a medium blue. And you can see how the dark blue just pops and makes all of the other colors just look brighter. So that's your goal, is to use your colors to play off of each other. And again, I would recommend, if you're new to quilting, starting with some pretty simple color schemes in a color that you like, and just pick different shades, with the dark color being just for pieces periodically throughout your block that are going to help the whole design to pop. So they have by color, so you could pick your favorite color. Let's go to, I like green, so let's go to green. And within the green, they have all kinds of options. Now, one of the it's both a blessing and a curse that most fabric stores, online and in store, have so many options. So great because we want options, but not so great when you're trying to find something. You will see that in these online stores you have lots and lots and lots of options. So if you can narrow it down up front with, as I mentioned, you know, getting cotton quilting fabric, if you have some favorite brands, you can enter that, favorite colors, and then just kind of scroll through and they'll give you descriptions of the different fabrics, and you can kind of pick out the ones that you think you would like. Let's go to one of the big box ones, Joann fabric. Now, Joann also has some good pull downs. Oh, and don't forget, always look for coupons, especially Joann's. Joann's usually has a plethora of coupons coming out, and you should get on their mailing list, because I will basically look almost every day, because you never know what kind of sale they're coming out with, and the sales make a significant difference. So I'm on Joann's site, and they too have some different filters. Theirs are along the left-hand side of the page, and the very first thing you need to do is just filter by fabric, because they do have more than just fabric. They have these different categories, so they have seasons and occasions. So if you were looking for something particular for Christmas or fall, you might click on that. They have, let's go down and say we want to go by color, so you can pick your color scheme. I definitely want to be able to select my fabric content. I'm going to pick 100% cotton, and then I'm going to go down to brand, and they don't have as many brands here, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. They have a collection, so they have holiday cotton. I'll try that. Let's look at some holiday cotton. And then they have, let's see, they even have price, type. Let's look at type. So they have quilt cotton fabric. Let's do that. Let's get a quilt cotton fabric. Okay, so I've narrowed it down more, which is good. You want to narrow down your search for sure. And then if you scroll through and just kind of read through the different descriptions with your screen reader. And again, for those who are using screen readers, please let me know how accessible the sites are for you. So some of these include Christmas trees, present holiday sweater fabric, green fold snowflakes. So, you get a variety of the different greens. All right, now I'm going to go to one of my favorite sites actually, and that's the Missouri Quilt Company. So www.missouriquiltco.com. And the reason why this is one of my favorites, I remember I remember watching Jenny from Missouri Quilt Company a long time ago when they were, I guess, just kind of starting out and learning so much from her tutorials. She's a great teacher. And so that's one thing. But the other thing, and they've grown a lot, but the other thing is their website is fantastic. It has great options for searching. So you've got the pre-cut section, you've got yardage, you've got kits, you've got books and patterns. But let's go back to the pre-cuts. They also have things like daily deals and things like that, and they definitely have tips. So let's go to pre-cuts, and when you go to pre-cuts, again, you'll see the charm packs, and they do a good job of describing it right on their menu. So it shows charm packs, 5-inch squares, mini charm packs, the 2.5-inch squares, jelly rolls, 2.5-inch strips, fat quarter bundles, 18 by 21, layer cakes, 10-inch squares, and honey buns, the 1.5-inch strips. And then fusible applique shapes they also include. If you go to the pre-cuts, they also have a learn more about pre-cuts. And within that learn more section, get there. So they have a button that says learn more about pre-cut fabrics, and I'm going to click on that. And then they tell you more, just in general, about pre-cut fabrics, some of the stuff we already covered. But there's this thing that says click here to download your free PDF of Guide to Pre-Cut Fabrics. So click there. And this I thought was pretty handy. It's just like a 2-pager, and it gives you the descriptions of the common pre-cuts of the honey buns, the jelly rolls, the mini charm packs, layer cakes, and fat quarters. And then down below, it has this little guide that says about how many of these you will need to make different quilts. So for your 5-pack charm squares, 5-inch pack, I should say, of charm squares, it says, for a baby quilt, you only need around 1 pack. For a crib quilt, you'd need 2. For a lap quilt, you'd need 3. For a twin, you'd need 5. For a queen, you need 6 to 8. And for a king, you need 8 to 10. Nice little feature there to just give you a sense of, okay, well, how much of an investment is this? And as I mentioned in the last video, you want to make sure you can get enough of any certain kind of pre-cut so you can finish your project in case they run out of stock or whatever. So this is a good kind of heads up to give you a sense of what you need to shop for. Then they also mention the same thing for your 10-inch squares, and then they talk about the 2.5-inch strips. Now, of course, you would want to know about your particular pattern ahead of time and make sure you have everything you need, but this is a good little guide. So again, great job with their website. I really have to hand it to them. And again, please provide your comments as to the accessibility of their website. Now, if we go to something like Walmart, let's check that out, another big box store. And we search here, and I'm going to just type in fabric. And then once I get to the fabric section, again, they have a menu along the side, and they let you select from a various number of things, including brand. So brand is something you could look at. They have availability, which sometimes I like to go there first and just say show available items only, because I don't really care about things that aren't available. They have color, again, pick your color schemes. They have fabric material, definitely go to 100% cotton. They have pattern, floral, stripe, printed, geometric, and other things, novelty, themes. So if you just wanted baby themes, birds, cartoons, we have a bunch of things here, holidays, category, quilting fabric, that might be something you check off. And then they also have things like length and width. They have customer ratings, so if you wanted to just look at stuff that was highly rated, you can click on that. So again, they do a pretty good job with their search, so that you can again cull down on what you want to look through, because you'll have lots of options to look through. And but as far as all of these search forms or search criteria, I would say all of these websites do a pretty good job of giving you different options. But again, you're gonna have so many options that you really are gonna have to try and narrow it down so that you can find what you want and not be overwhelmed. As far as the tools, I would say the Missouri Quilt Company has the best website I've seen so far in providing those tools to really help you learn more too, as well as just not so much about the fabric itself, but what you need for your particular projects and that sort of thing. So I hope this has been helpful. From my perspective, I love shopping online because it's so much easier than going to a store. Some people like going to a store so you can touch and feel the fabric, and I get that. I like touching and feeling the fabric too. But especially if you have low vision, sometimes that's tougher. Obviously, if you do have some sight and are able to use magnifying glasses, then that can definitely be an option and a reason to go into a quilt store. But there are so many online options these days, and they do provide a wealth of information for you. So I'm not going to go over every online source, but wanted to give you kind of a high-level overview. I hope this has been helpful. If you have other questions that I did not cover or other feedback, please write in the comments or write to me or give me a call, and who knows, maybe we'll share that information in the next video.